Woke up this morning, didn't off my shoes. Feel like that now. Got walking blues. Woke up this morning.
Growing up in the Washington, D.C. area in the 80s, I used to attend a record store called Yesterday and Today, like an acolyte to a church. The record covers themselves were treasure maps, a way of letting a suburban kid experience and learn about the world. Once I took a Steel Pulse record to New York City to try to find the shoes that the lead singer was wearing on the cover. The first time I ever learned about apartheid was not in high school. It was from the record Free Nelson Mandela by the Special AKA. On the front of that record, there was a giant picture of Nelson Mandela, 12 1/4 inches by 12 1/4 inches, larger than family photos are printed. And on the back was 5 or 6 paragraphs about the movement against apartheid. In 2018, I traveled to Kansas City as part of Open Spaces, which was an attempt at a Kansas City triennial. One day, on a break from recording, I met an architect in a coffee shop on Oak Street, near the site of the old Kansas City Star building. The architect's name was Elvis Acapole, and I asked him for tips and places to visit on the prairie in Kansas, because I had traveled all this way and I wanted to see the gateway to the West, where so many pioneers and settlers had set off to find their fortunes. That night, Elvis drafted a very thoughtful list of places to visit on the prairie. And later, when I finally got a day off, I took the musician S.J. Downs, who's traveled to Never Records all around the world 7 or 8 times, from Amman, Jordan to Kansas City to New Orleans. And Stu and I set off on a treasure hunt to find the places that Elvis told us to visit. Our first stop was the Tallgrass National Preserve, where there's still a herd of bison. And Stu set up in the middle of the prairie and serenaded the bison. Now, I had forgotten to bring my windscreens for my microphones, and out of desperation, I planted a mic in front of Stu in the tall grass itself, and it acted as the perfect windscreen. This recording to me sounds like it was made in a recording studio and not live out on a windswept prairie. The last stop on our treasure hunt was to watch the sunset between 2 radio towers on the side of the highway on the Kansas prairie. It was absolutely magical. Stu and I got a 6-pack, pulled the car off to the side of the road, and serenaded each other as the sun set. It was one of those crystalline moments that Never Records always delivers. And that's the thing about the project. It's my way of traveling to a place and learning about that place from the inside out, from the creative community that participates in the project. And there's nothing I love more than this cross-pollination that happens when I introduce performers or share recordings from one performer to the next, from an architect to Kansas City to a blues guitarist from London. Never Records reflects my belief that art is a gateway to adventure. That's why I got into art as a kid, for the adventure of it. Here is Elvis Acapole reading his list of directions, followed by S.J. Downs serenading bison on the Kansas prairie.
This is Elvis Acapole. Here are some locations I like to visit in the Flint Hills. The first few are accessible off of Highway 50. 1. The Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve is just outside Strong City, Kansas. It's open 24 hours. I love visiting at midnight. I've run into bison here a couple times, but don't get too close. 2. Matfield Green is an old railroad and ranching town. There are a handful of artists who have stakes here. Wes Jackson moved here with a group of folks to found an early version of the Land Institute in the 1970s. Terry Evans took some of her better early photographs here. Bill McBride is a sculptor who stayed in Matfield after the Land Institute moved out. He's still here and is slowly turning a stretch of railroad easement into the Matfield Station Prairie Art Project. I like his installation of perfectly balancing branches there. William Least Heat Moon wrote about Mattville Green and the rest of Chase County in his book, Prairie Earth, A Deep Map. 3. My friend is renovating the old bank in Elmdale, Kansas. We visit him there occasionally. When we do, we like to watch the sunset just west of Chase County Fishing Lake. The best view is under the communication tower near the intersection of Lake and North Roads. Starting off in Elmdale, drive east on Main Street. It turns into Lake Road. Turn right where it tees with North Road, and the communication tower will be to your left. 4. There are other places to explore. Cottonwood Falls is probably the most populated town, and you can get directions and recommendations at the Symphony and the Flint Hills offices if you want. There's a beautiful old stone mill in Cedar Point, and I love to sit on the Clement Stone Arch Bridge in Clements right off of the highway. 5. If you can go further into Kansas, go to Lucas. It's home to the Garden of Eden, which is what S.P. Dinsmore named the estate he built in the 19-teens and 20s. First, he made a log cabin out of cement logs. Then he turned the whole property into a series of cement dioramas depicting Bible stories and political cartoons. There were cement rabbit hutches and bird cages for his kids. He encased his first wife in a cement tomb, and then preserved himself in a glass coffin stacked on top. The seals broke several years ago, so he's mummifying in place. But for decades after his death, he looked the same as his last day on Earth. The Kohler Toilet Company purchased the property a few years ago and restored it, and then they donated it back to a trust. 6. You may want to spend the night near Lucas. I love to camp on Lake Wilson, which has crystal clear waters. Kansas 232 connects Lucas and Wilson. It's also called the Post Rock Scenic Byway because early settlers used to make everything, including their fence posts, out of the abundant limestone found in the region. Our friend runs a stoneworking business. He rents quarry rights from ranchers along 232. They move the cows to one side of the acreage and he digs up rock. Then he covers it back up, the cows move to the other side, and he starts the process over again. His workshop is in Lucas, right under the tornado siren. 7. On your drive back to Kansas City, you can eat at the Brookville Hotel off of 570. The hotel became famous for frying chicken in World War II, although it's been around since the late 1800s. It used to be located in Salina, but the sewer system couldn't keep up with business, so they built a replica of the building 40 miles away in Abilene and reestablished there. That place is pretty kitschy, but I like their pickled apples. I think they brine them in cinnamon.
wild, wild hogs, wild hogs mow. I got something to tell you. Got something to tell you, good woman, right now, right now. I've been thinking about you, long way from home. I've been dreaming about the trail, across the mountains where the buffalo roam. Follow the sun, follow silver moon, across the mountains, gonna see you soon. Got something to tell you, good woman, right now. You got a